Well, am I audible to all?
Yes.
I think. Okay, then good morning. On behalf of Dr. Kangal Bhattacharya College, I, Vidushi Hasdar, Assistant Professor of History, welcome you all to the national webinar on historical perspective of health and education under pandemic, organized jointly by Department of History and Department of Education. Well, the term pandemic and epidemic is not at all unknown to us because there are several records of pandemics in history. But living in a pandemic is happening to us for the first time, according to me, as the last record of pandemic was about 200 years ago. And at the British India. And here is very much important pillar related to pandemic, or better to say, pandemics or epidemics are directly related to human health. And we are very much thankful, and it is a great pleasure to have two eminent historians, Professor Shubhra Mukherjee and Professor Aurobindo Samanta, today to discuss on the history of pandemic. Both of them are very well known for their excellent work on health, and we are very much grateful to them that they have gave their time for today's webinar. To start with, I would like to request our guest, eminent geographer, Dr. Prithish Kumar Roy, to deliver his valuable lines for today's webinar. Dr. Roy was Professor of Geography in St. Xavier's College previously, and presently he is Vice Principal of Prafullo Chandra College. He is author of so many books, particularly economic geography, but this line is not enough to introduce him because he always encourages to organize seminars and conferences, guides us like a philosopher and mentor. So the name Dr. Prithish Kumar Roy means a lot to us. And now I would like to request Dr. Roy to say a few lines for today's webinar and start today's webinar officially. Over to you, sir. Just give me 1 minute. I am going to unmute you because there is a problem of echo. Yes.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome you all in this August
Sir, we
seminar.
are unable to see you because your video is not working, I think. Is it possible to... Yeah, now it's okay, sir. Please.
Am I audible?
Yeah,
Am
absolutely,
I
sir.
audible? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then once again, I must welcome everybody in this webinar on pandemic and historical perspective and its impact on education as such. So before going into that details of this subject, I must acknowledge the effort of Vidushi and Sampa to organize this webinar, and I hope it will be a wonderful webinar amongst all the webinars happening everywhere, every day in all the colleges in West Bengal. So pandemic is nothing new. It happens over centuries, even in the archaic period, even 5,000 years back. So this is nothing new. And we were actually, the human being is always not very keen to remember history as such, and human being is always vulnerable to all kinds of threat, either from the interior of the earth in the form of earthquakes and all that, from the exterior of the earth, from the uh, onslaught of meteorites and all that, which may wipe out our human civilization within a fraction of a second. But we were always ignorant about it, always remain ignorant about history, and history never teaches us the lessons which is supposed to be. So as far as one is from the interior of the earth, another from the exterior earth of the earth, and another from the biotic and the living world. The living world is a threat to human being because over the years, so many pandemics always threatened us and wiped a sizable portion of our human population from this planet Earth. So even in the pre-recorded history, from the relics of ancient dead bodies, we find it that some of those were the victims of epidemics or some of the uh, diseases which are hitherto unknown to us, and some of these are known to us. And the recorded history says that we must be careful about the trauma of pandemic, which may wipe out the entire civilization, if not at least partial wiping out of the human civilization. So, but we were totally not careful about this thing. Even our eminent virologists who are working tirelessly for this pandemic situation, they were also not very careful about this thing, and we hardly had any precaution of pandemics. So, beside all these things, the recorded history says that plague, Spanish flu, even in the recent past, Hini, SARS, MERS, and all these things, they are coming the frequency of their occurrence has increased a lot, and in the near future, this is not the end of the game. This is just the beginning. This coronavirus is absolutely different from all other previous viruses. That is, one is from bacteria, another is from virus. Both are lethal and deadly. And this plague, we can get it from the literature. Albert Camus, The Plague. The Europe, 1/3 of Europe has been wiped out, and after that, the Spanish influenza is now the talk of the town. It is now everybody nowadays discussing about Spanish flu. So whatever the impact of pandemic, we are not aware about this thing. That is that is my point. And its impact on education, it's immense. In fact, in the last few months, we were all devoid of any classroom chalk and talk lectures. Instead of that, we were all in the virtual world. We were all going through all the webinars and classroom lectures through Google Meet and some other form. But this webinars and virtual classes cannot replace the traditional chalk and talk. At least the direct direct transfer of knowledge from teacher to student is now virtually absent. So I hope the entire panelists will focus on that, and everybody will enjoy this discussion. And once again, I thank all the panelists for their valuable suggestion and all that. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Actually, it's very much true, and we are missing our traditional webinars and conferences a lot. But still, there is a pandemic. There is no other option left. Now we will enter to the main discussion of the day. But before we start, there is an announcement. This is unfortunate for us. Professor Aurobindo Samanto has just informed that he is not able to deliver his lecture today due to some very specific personal reason. So on behalf of my esteemed colleagues, I beg pardon to all the past participants. Now I would like to request my HOD, Professor Shubhashish Ghosh, to conduct the webinar further. Over to you, sir.
আমি বাংলাতেই বলছি।
No problem. No problem. You can proceed.
এখানে যা দেখতে পাচ্ছি সবাই বাংলা ভাষাভাষী লোকজন রয়েছে।
No problem, sir. Please proceed.
বাংলাতেই বলছি। সুজাতা ম্যাডাম, স্বাগত। যে বিষয়টা আজকের আমাদের ওয়েবিনারে বাছা হয়েছে, তার যে শীর্ষকটা রয়েছে, আমি জাস্ট দু একটা কথা সে সম্পর্কে আমার যে বোধ, সেই বোধটুকু একটু সবার সাথে ভাগ করে নিতে চাইছি অতি অল্প সময়। আমরা যারা ইতিহাস চর্চা করি, আমি নিজেকে ইতিহাসে একজন।
সরি ফর দ্য ইন্টারাপশন, প্লিজ ইওর ফেস ইজ নট ভিজিবল ফুললি।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, ওকে,
নাও ইটস ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ।
হ্যাঁ, আমরা যারা ইতিহাস নিয়ে চর্চা করি তারা মোটামুটি এটা জানি যে যে কোনো ঘটনাকে আমরা একটা সিচুয়েট করা, একটা হিস্টোরিক্যাল পার্সপেক্টিভে, সেটা ঐতিহাসিকের একটা দায়িত্ব হয়, সেটা প্যান্ডেমিক হোক বা অন্য যে ধরনের ঘটনায় হোক আর কি। প্রথম কথা হচ্ছে যে এই সিচুয়েট করা, অর্থাৎ একটা পার্সপেক্টিভের মধ্যে এটাকে ফেলা, একটা বৃহত্তর প্রেক্ষাপটে এটাকে ধরা, এটা কিন্তু অত্যন্ত জরুরি। এখানে আমাদের আজকে যে ওয়েবিনারটা হচ্ছে, তাদের দুটো বিষয় বাছা হয়েছে, একটা হেলথ, একটা এডুকেশন। আমি বাংলা যদি করি স্বাস্থ্য এবং শিক্ষা। এখন যারা আছেন উনি তো এ বিষয়ে মানে অত্যন্ত প্রাজ্ঞ একজন। আমি কোন রকম বিষয়ে বাড়তি কথা বলবো না, আমি যেটুকু আমি বুঝছি, এটা হচ্ছে স্বাস্থ্য কথাটা কিন্তু একটা বৃহত্তর অর্থেও কিন্তু আমরা ব্যবহার করতে পারি। স্বাস্থ্য মানে শুধুমাত্র আমরা যদি ফিজিক্যাল সেন্সে ভাবি, সেটা আমার মনে হয়, আমার মতে সেটা একটুখানি সংকীর্ণ অর্থ হয়ে যাবে। স্বাস্থ্য বলতে কিন্তু আমরা সামগ্রিকভাবে সামাজিক, অর্থনৈতিক, সাংস্কৃতিক যাবতীয় বিষয়টা এর সঙ্গে যে সংশ্লিষ্ট, সেটাকে আমরা ধরতে পারি। এখন এই যে বর্তমান পরিস্থিতির মধ্যে যে আমি যাচ্ছি, আমি অতীতের কথা বলছি না, অতীতের কথা অনেকেই আলোচনা করছে বা হবে না, সেটার মধ্যে দিয়ে যেতে যাচ্ছি আমরা এখন, যে অতিমারি শব্দটা আমার পছন্দ নয়, আমার পছন্দ হচ্ছে সর্বব্যাপী মহামারী শব্দটা, আমার মনে হয় উপযুক্ত। প্যান কথাটা আদৌ অতির মধ্যে ধরা যায় না, যাক সেটা তো প্রশ্ন। আমরা এখন যে বর্তমান যে পরিস্থিতির মধ্যে যাচ্ছি, সেখানে কিন্তু আমাদের এই অনেকগুলো বিষয়ের একটা সচেতনতা কিন্তু তৈরি হচ্ছে। এবং হিস্টোরিক্যালি এই যে ক্রাইসিসটা মানুষ অনেক অর্থে নিজেই দেখে নিয়ে এসছে। যারা স্পিলওভার পড়েছেন ডেভিড কটনের, তারা বুঝতে পারবেন এটা ভালো করে, যে মানুষ কিভাবে প্রকৃতির ভারসাম্যকে নষ্ট করেছে এবং নষ্ট করে সেটাকে এই অবস্থার মধ্যে নিয়ে এসেছে। এবং এই যে আজকের যে অতিমারি বা যে করোনা ভাইরাসের যে প্রকোপ, এটা কিন্তু অনেকগুলো নতুন বিষয়ের জন্ম দিচ্ছে, কিন্তু যদি টার্মিনোলজি আমরা পাচ্ছি। যেমন আমি অতি সম্প্রতি একটা শব্দ শুনলাম, ভ্যাকসিন ন্যাশনালিটি, অর্থাৎ ভ্যাকসিন যারা তৈরি করছে তারা নিজের দেশটাকে আগে দেখবে, পরে অন্যদের কথা পরে ভাববে। এরকম বহু বিষয় উঠে আসছে। শিক্ষা একটা সংকটের মুখে দাঁড়িয়ে গেছে। সামাজিক বিভাজন, শ্রেণীগত বিভাজন সুস্পষ্ট হয়ে উঠছে। এই বিষয়গুলো নিশ্চয়ই সুজাতার আলোচনার মধ্যে বা আমাদের আলোচনার মধ্যে থাকবে। আমি এই অবধি বলবো, এবং আমার উপর একটা দায়িত্ব বিদেশি দিয়েছে, সেটা হচ্ছে সুজাতাকে পরিচিত করা। আমি কিন্তু ম্যাডাম কথাটা সুজাতা ম্যাডামকে পরিচিত করার জন্য, সুজাতা ম্যাডাম কে পরিচিত করা, ইতিহাস মহলে তিনি অত্যন্ত একটি পরিচিত নাম। এখন তিনি আরবিউর অধ্যাপিকা এবং একসময় ডিন অফ আর্টস ছিলেন এই বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ে, এবং সেন্টার ফর গান্ধিয়ান স্টাডিজ আরবিউর, সেখানেও উনি প্রাক্তন ডিরেক্টর। দেশে বিদেশে বহু খ্যাতনামা উচ্চশিক্ষা প্রতিষ্ঠানের সঙ্গে উনি যুক্ত হয়েছেন, মর্যাদা সম্পন্ন পদ অলঙ্কৃত করেছেন। ভিক্টোরিয়া ইউনিভার্সিটির ওয়েলিংটন, যেটা নিউজিল্যান্ডে, সেখানে আইসিসিআর চেয়ার তিনি হোল্ড করেছেন। অতিথি শিক্ষক হিসেবে কাজ করেছেন জেএনইউ এবং ইন্ডিয়ান ইনস্টিটিউট অফ সায়েন্স, বিশ্বভারতী এবং এরকম অনেক এর সঙ্গে। ওনার গবেষণার অভিমুখ খুব বৈচিত্র্যময়। জেন্ডার, টেকনোলজি, মেডিসিন, পরিবেশ, এই সমস্ত নিয়ে ওনার আগ্রহ রয়েছে। ওনার বই বা নিবন্ধের তালিকা দিতে গেলে গোটা একটা ওয়েবিনার লেগে যাবে। এবং অধ্যাপিকা মুখার্জির বেশ কিছু মনোজ্ঞ নিবন্ধ এবং বই প্রকাশিত হয়েছে। তাই এইরকম একজন বিদগ্ধ ব্যক্তিত্বকে আমাদের এই ওয়েবিনারে পেয়ে বিশেষজ্ঞ বক্তা হিসেবে আমরা অত্যন্ত আনন্দিত। আপনাকে আমি আমাদের কলেজের তরফে, আমাদের ডিপার্টমেন্টের তরফে আন্তরিক স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। বিদেশি, এবার তোমার পালা। ম্যাডামকে শুরু করার জন্য তুমি অনুরোধ করো।
Well, now we will enter into the speech directly, and I would like to request Madam Mukherjee to start her valuable lectures for the day. Over to you, ma'am.
Yes, good morning, সুপ্রভাত এবং নমস্কার সবাইকে। আমি প্রথমেই ধন্যবাদ জানাবো কানাইলাল ভট্টাচার্য কলেজের উদ্যোক্তাদের, বিশেষ করে বিদুষী এবং এইচওডি শুভাশিস আমাকে এখানে আমন্ত্রণ জানানোর জন্য, এবং অবশ্যই প্রিন্সিপাল যিনি আনফরচুনেটলি এখানে থাকতে পারছেন না কাজের জন্য। আজকে আমি যে বিষয়ে বলবো, আমি একটা টাইটেল দিয়েছিলাম, সেটা হচ্ছে রিভিজিটিং দ্য হিস্ট্রি অফ প্যান্ডেমিক্স ইন ব্রিটিশ বেঙ্গল। যেহেতু আমার এইটা রিসার্চ ইন্টারেস্টের মধ্যে পড়ে, অতিমারির ইতিহাস এবং মহামারীর ইতিহাস, তাই জন্য আমি খুব আনন্দিত আমার নিজের কিছু ইনসাইটস শেয়ার করতে পারছি বলে। That is why I thank you, the organizers, once again, and also the listeners and the participants also. Now, as we have already heard, this pandemic or epidemic which we are passing through now is not new or unprecedented. World has witnessed such pandemic, epidemic এর যেটা একটা বৃহত্তর আকার বলা যেতে পারে, in the past as well. And 100 years back, for example, we know world faced Spanish flu or influenza pandemic, 1918-20. Interestingly, this did not originate in Spain. Although it was called Spanish flu, it did not originate in Spain. Actually, world was then going through a war. We know the First World War. So Spain was a neutral.
Hello.
Any problem?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাডাম, আমি জ্ঞানদা বলছি। আমার ঢুকতে দেরি হয়ে গেল, তো বলবেন কি বলছিলেন?
Someone is interfering. Someone is interfering.
Please tell me when I can carry on.
Ma'am, just a second, ma'am.
Okay.
I am getting muted.
Okay, so shall I carry on?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay. So as I was saying, about Spanish flu, 100 years back, world witnessed Spanish flu. That was a severe pandemic. Around 100 million people all over the world died. Maybe more, because that was wartime, so all dates were not recorded. Now, it was called Spanish flu not because it originated in Spain, but because it was first reported in press from Madrid, because it was a wartime situation and there was wartime censor imposed on press in different countries. But Spain was neutral, so Spain, a paper from Madrid first reported it. In fact, Spain then thought that it originated in France. Okay, but we are not certain where it actually started, because we know definitely that it actually spread to other areas of the world through troop movement connected to war. For example, it entered India around 1918 May, June, in Bombay, when a ship carrying a load of troops came to Bombay port, and through those soldiers, actually, it spread in Bombay area, in Karachi also, and then it disseminated to other parts of India. And nearly 18 million people of British India died from that. India was very severely affected. Now, interestingly, we see a great deal of similarities between preventive measures taken during Spanish flu and preventive measures which we are advised to take now, like wearing masks. You know, that was also suggested, and we get a lot of pictures of people wearing masks in public places during Spanish flu, maintaining social distance, quarantine. We are hearing these words now, but these actually happened earlier as well. Theaters, schools, and colleges remained closed for a long time, and there was no outright cure, or there was no remedial medicine or vaccine, just as we don't have anything till now during COVID-19 crisis. And again, interestingly, now there is a great deal of controversy about applying certain drugs like hydroxychloroquine. Then also, at that time, some doctors prescribed aspirin in high doses. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. Okay, so it was like that during influenza crisis. Then again, if we go back another 100 years, around 1817, 20, 23, and throughout the 19th century, there was cholera pandemic, which again spread in different parts of India, in European continent, in England, in USA, in Africa, and also in different regions of South Asia, Southeast Asia, Japan, Korean Peninsula, China. Now, we might wonder, how did it spread? It spread because world was connected in those days also because of trade. There were trade routes from Asia to Europe. It went through Red Sea also. And also there were pilgrimages, people going to Mecca. And in fact, the Europeans thought that these pilgrims, they disseminated cholera to Europe. So you see, there is another similarity between how people conceptualized disease in those days, even in the naming of the disease. Now, we also find certain similarities between those days, between the days of cholera pandemic and today during COVID. Because the first, this COVID-19, or which is now known as coronavirus, originally sometimes it was termed as Chinese virus, Wuhan virus, and so on and so forth. Now, who had a kind of regulation that there should be generic term should be used to characterize virus. But in those days, there was no such who, as we know, in the 19th century. So this cholera was termed as Asiatic cholera. And in different parts of Europe, in the white world actually, it was always termed as Asiatic cholera. I'll come back to it later. Now this cholera pandemic and how India actually confronted, because India was then a colonial country under the British rule. This colonial administration also faced a challenge because of cholera pandemic. And we have to remember also that this started even before the germ theory of disease was accepted. The germ theory of disease, that germs or bacteria are responsible for certain types of disease, or for example, for malaria, the mosquitoes, they bring diseases when they bite people, or that plague disseminates through rat and fleas. those knowledge were not there in the early 19th century. So those people who have actually researched on, there has been a great deal of research on connection between pandemic and mentalities. As Shubhashis has been saying, yes, it is true that pandemic situation creates a kind of panic, especially when there is no cure or no vaccine. If we are saying that there is a lot of tension, social tension, mental tension, anxiety, fear, that happened during that term also, during the days of cholera. And then people were really very panicked because cholera created devastation, high mortality, and also another aspect of cholera was that it spread very rapidly. I mean, a healthy person, look at a healthy person at this moment, and when he or she is attacked by cholera, at once she or he would pass through a severe physical crisis. It strikes very rapidly, cholera. So that kind of impact of cholera also created dread and panic and fear, widespread fear among the people. That at one moment you are looking at a healthy person, and just next moment you'd see that he or she is just dying on the deathbed. So this also created widespread fear and also panic among the people. And this did also, this kind of mental anxiety, mental fear, impact on mentality was created by cholera. And so this also had effect on conceptualization of the disease. That why the disease spread, who were responsible. There was also a kind of mentality that happens during pandemic times, that passing the blame on some people. For example, nowadays or earlier also we saw that the certain communities and their cultural habits, their dietary habits were blamed for disseminating this virus. Because this creates a lot of social tension, and this also leads people to pass on the blame, to unlock fear. They would pass the blame on someone. They would try to externalize the disease. Well, he or she is to blame, or that particular community is to blame. And nowadays, this has created social tension, community tension in different parts. This has also led to even violence. Though in those days, in 19th century, cholera pandemic attacked whole world in 6 different waves. And then also we see this kind of fear, this kind of panic, absence of any outright cure. All these led to blaming someone, blaming the habits of someone for creating this kind of, or disseminating this kind of disease. That is, how did it happen? We see that first cholera epidemic or cholera pandemic was noted in Jessore, in the town of Jessore, in the district of Jessore, Joshore Jillar, Joshore Shahore, now in Bangladesh, in 1870. Now, not that cholera was not present before that anyway. In 17th century, Mohanlal Sarkar tells us that in 17th century there is official record of outbreak of cholera even in England and in Batavia also. In Portuguese Goa, the Portuguese also reported outbreak of certain disease, later named as cholera, in 16th century. Now, actually, this came to Bengal. In Bengal, there in certain pockets there was cholera. We know about Chiyattur and Manvantar, the students of history. 1776, there was a famine. And famine also in Indian history, in colonial period, famine often led to deaths from epidemics also. During this famine of 1776 also there are many epidemics. Cholera was also one of those. And but that those at those times they were really restricted to certain areas. They did not become so widespread. But around this cholera, when it broke out in 1817, between 1817 and 1823, it from Jessore it traveled to Calcutta, it traveled to other parts of Bengal, it traveled to Western India, it traveled to Northern India. And even we see outbreak of cholera in Russia, in Korean Peninsula and other countries of Asia also between 1817 and 1822. Later on, around 1830-32, it hit England and the continent of Europe, especially through trade. Okay, so actually what happened in India is that before 1817, cholera was being carried to different parts of India by Europeans through troop movements of British soldiers. Because in late 18th century, the British were fighting wars in different parts of India. Carnatic wars, there was Battle of Plassey, Battle of Buxar. The British were fighting these wars to establish their supremacy. So there was a lot of troop movement. Even during cholera, 1817, 1818, we see there was Maratha war going on. And just before that, around 1814, there was outbreak of cholera in army barracks in Fort William, in Calcutta in Fort William. So because of all this, what we should try to remember as students of history, that through European trade movements and through movements of traders from one region of India to another region, actually there was spread of dissemination of cholera. But it was not endemic to the region. And when cholera broke out in Europe, it was not the same bacteria which caused cholera in Europe. It was a different strain of bacteria. Still, we see that the British and the Europeans called it Asiatic cholera or Indian cholera. Throughout the 19th century, we see that cholera pandemic happened in 6 waves. And in all these waves, and even later, we see that this cholera was always referred to as Indian cholera or Asiatic cholera. That is what has been called as epidemic Orientalism by different scholars. That Orient or the East was seen by the Occident or the Western powers as hotbed of cholera and other epidemic diseases. So this was the conceptualization of this disease, that this was Asiatic cholera, and Asia and India and even Bengal was responsible for this spread of cholera. People of India were also made responsible because of their habits. Also, we see that it happened because the pilgrims and pilgrimages, religious fairs, and customs of people, unsanitary habits of people, these were all blamed as causing cholera. So this thing has to be kept in mind, how it really created tension and how the cholera was conceptualized in 19th century. There were 2 ways how the cholera was thought to have originated. I mean, there are 2 theories during that time. One was the environmental theory and another was the contagionist theory. Environmental theory meant that Indian environment there's a lot of sound coming in. I think everyone should mute the microphone because I'm hearing a lot of sound.
It has throw of eating.
Okay.
Everybody, please mute your microphone.
Keep it on a mute mode, please.
Ma'am, please continue.
Yes. So as I was saying, that there was widespread fear, there was widespread anxiety, and what about the healthcare facilities? Was there any healthcare facilities or treatment available for combating cholera, controlling cholera in 19th century India, or for that matter in Europe? Here we see that there was, as I was saying, there was no outright cure. Of course, there are hospitals. For example, the British East India Company, when they came here, they had to think about protecting the health of their soldiers. The soldiers were suffering from different diseases because they had to cope up with tropical climate. They were not accustomed to tropical climate. So they were having fevers, attacks of fevers, they were having different bowel complaints. And cholera was also one of the major reasons which escalated mortality among British soldiers. So the British first and foremost thought of protecting the health of the soldiers. In fact, all these healthcare facilities which started developing in British period in India prioritize the need of the army, prioritize the need of the soldiers, white soldiers. And next, they also thought of protecting the health of the European civilian population. Indians came last because they had to think about Indians' health also, so that the Europeans do not get infected. They do not catch diseases from the Indians. So they had to think about Indians also. Now, but to begin with, when the East India Company came here, they established certain hospitals in 18th century, starting from 1707. There was one hospital, but all these hospitals really only served the European population, the soldiers, the sailors, and the European civilians. Calcutta got its first hospital for Indians around 1794. But there also there were very few beds. Mostly outdoor treatments were given. Very few indoor beds were there. Now, in 1817, as I said, the cholera broke out in very virulent form. And there was also rise in mortality, rise in deaths among the British soldiers. Then what did the British do? Then the British, sometimes they took quarantine measures, and they would, in modern language we can see that they wanted to keep the British soldiers in safe social distance from natives. So they would cordon off the barracks, army barracks, and they would disallow these army people to go to native places like native bazaars, so that they do not mingle with the native people and they do not get infection from them. So there was quarantine, that is land quarantine, partial land quarantine. And secondly, there was also a great deal of sanitary measures also taken. The British were ready to spend a lot of money for bringing sanitary improvements in the army barracks. They were not at all interested to bear the burden of good sanitation, supplying good drinking water to general villagers. They were not ready for that. But they were, of course, for the safety of the empire, they had to keep the army in good health. So they adopted various sanitary measures. After 1859, you know, there was this great rebellion in 1857. And thereafter, the number of British troops also became larger. And they had to think seriously of restoring the health of the army. So after 1859, we see that there was a sanitary commission for inquiring into the health of the army. And this commission in its report, this commission recommended various sanitary measures for protecting the health of the army. And all these sanitary measures were actually adopted. And so the mortality from cholera and other epidemic diseases among the army actually was brought down. But that did not happen for the Indian poor villages, for slum dwellers. Because when we see that when different waves of epidemics came, cholera epidemics came, the villagers suffered most. From 1817 to 1823, there was one wave. Then again, the next decade, in 1830, 36 till 36, there was another wave. After 3 years gap, there was another wave. In every decade, there is this wave of cholera pandemic throughout the 19th century. Sometimes it stayed for short duration, like 3-4 years. Sometimes it would extend to 10-12 years. That is the recorded dates of pandemic. But you know, in village side, in Bengal villages, we see that every 3-4 years, cholera would come back. Not only cholera, there is also epidemic of smallpox. Malaria also became endemic. Plague later on came in late 19th century. And when plague came, the European, the imperial trade interest was hampered very much. So they took very stringent measure for combating plague. There was this epidemic, plague first came in 1896 in Bombay. From there it traveled to Calcutta around 1898. And first in Bombay, in Surat, this Epidemic Diseases Act was adopted. Epidemic Diseases Act of 1897 was adopted, which gave tremendous power to the administration to invoke any sort of measures, to adopt any sort of measures to tackle this plague epidemic. And the British took very high-handed measures. Even if they had any doubt that there might be plague in certain areas, they would go to that region, they would enter without permission into the houses of Indians, they would drag out Indians, and even in the streets, in the open streets, we see that women, children, elderly people would be stripped off to see if there is any sign of plague, attack by plague. This is very interesting because this Epidemic Diseases Act of colonial period, this piece of legislation, which was passed in 1897, it is still there now. And in India, you know, to tackle the disease of COVID-19, the Disaster Management Act has been invoked, certain provisions, and certain provisions of this Epidemic Diseases Act of 1897 have also been invoked, which gives tremendous power to political administration to impose any sort of measures. Like, you know, nowadays this lockdown measure, this quarantine measures, that people cannot come out and then the police would take certain measures. This was legal because of this act being in place. Now, so we see how there is continuity. In the history, we see this chain of continuity. That is why it is very important that look back. We also understand this continuity, factor of continuity in historical chains, and also think about whether we can learn something from the past, which would help us also to face today's crisis in a better manner. So coming back to this cholera crisis, as I was saying, that the poor villagers were suffering a lot because there was no administrator to take care of them. How so and why so? Why so? Because it involved to take sanitary measures to provide good drinking water would mean a lot of expenses on the part of imperial administration. And they were not ready to bear that burden of expenditure. So what happened was that gradually we see that this responsibility of taking care of health of the villagers were passed on to village administration. There are district boards were formed, the rural boards. They had to take care, they had to arrange for their own fund resources, they had to manage by taxing poor people, and from that tax money they were expected to bring good sanitary measures, which was impossible. That is why we see that in Bengali periodicals, in Bengali journals, a lot of writings by Indians who said that the poor villagers, they cannot really arrange for taking good sanitary measures because the village economy is very poor. Where would they get fund? So this shortage of fund, the district board, district administration always hampered good sanitation measures. And the imperial government, they did not take this financial responsibility. Another reason was that, but this was less important, I think, that there was a great deal of controversy regarding why and how cholera broke out. As I was saying, before 1880s, there was no germ theory of disease. So there were two approaches. One was called the environmental paradigm of disease. There were people who thought that India's environment, India's local climatic condition was responsible for cholera. Some would say that this tropical climate, this humidity, and sudden fall in temperature, like sudden rain, this hot and humid climate, and then again sudden rain, this great deal of fluctuation in climate would lead to cholera germs. Okay, they did not use the word germs, but it would contribute to rise of cholera. And on the other hand, there are others who said that miasma, they believed in miasmatic theories. That is all kinds of miasma or mal air. You know, mal air from this word, actually malaria, this word came. So mal air, but dushito bayu. How bayu becomes dushito, মানে বায়ু কিভাবে দূষিত হচ্ছে, the rotten vegetables বা human filth, যে কোনো জায়গায় ডার্ট নোংরা ইত্যাদি যেখানে থাকে বা যেখানে ভেজিটেবলস পচে যাচ্ছে হয়তো rotten fish and meat, from there that would really pollute the air. So this was miasmatic theory, puti bashpo. So this all form part of environmental paradigm of disease. Now, interestingly, even after the germ was discovered by Robert Koch, he actually discovered this cholera bacillus. But even then, in the 1880s, even then this environmental paradigm has continued to function. In India, the British medical experts, they won't easily accept Robert Koch's discovery. They would say, oh, well, even if there is a germ, it will work only when there is bad environment. So the environmental, this paradigm persisted. It became persistent. Even in the 20th century, also we find that there are people who believed in that. They thought the environment was actually a major factor in spreading germs of cholera and other diseases. On the other hand, there were others who believed in contagiousness, that human-to-human transmission was happening. So you see in England, you see there was this discovery, John Snow's discovery as early as 1840-50, who showed that there was some connection between water pollution and spread of cholera. But that theory was not accepted by British medical experts in India. But there were some who would say, yes, human-to-human transmission was happening. And so there was this division of opinion about the causation of cholera, which also made it very difficult to take any one type of measures. But those contagionists who said that human-to-human transmission was happening, they said that the pilgrims and habits of Indian people are to blame, because they are very insanitary. Habitually they are insanitary. That is, they don't care about any sanitary measures. And Indian pilgrims, they are a dangerous class. They were then actually conceptualized as a dangerous class. They were the source of cholera infection. Because whenever there was pilgrimages, like in Hardwar Kumbh Mela, it is true that around 1867, during Hardwar Kumbh Mela, the cholera broke out in large number, and later on also. Now, then these contagionists said that there should be some kind of measures to control these pilgrims and pilgrimages. But there were people like Cunningham, who was the sanitary commissioner. He was a very powerful fellow. He was a sanitary commissioner from 1868 for 2 decades. And there was another very powerful person, Bryden, John Bryden. Bryden and Cunningham, they made a powerful combination. Both of them, they rejected pilgrim theory. They said, no, the human to human transmission was not happening because of these pilgrims. It was happening because they were very tired, and also they were getting attacked by cholera because there was a of cholera. But what is interesting is that both these two groups of people, the contagionists and the anti-contagionists or the environmentalists, both blamed India and Indians in one way or other for dissemination of cholera. So they were actually representing just both sides of the same coin. That is the imperial coin, the imperialism, the cultural content of imperialism. Where the Indians, they are very barbaric, they are uncivilized, they do not understand the Western methods of sanitation, they would say. And the other group would say, well, this Indian climate is so rotten that it would lead to all kinds of diseases, outbreak of all diseases. So both these group of people, they would blame India in one way or another. So what was the response of the Indians to this? Now, in most cases, we see that in Bengal, at least, the Bengalis wrote a number of articles in Bengali, mostly in the journals, in periodicals, in books also. They were saying that this is not true, that Indians do not care about sanitary habits. The Indian villages cannot really maintain good sanitation or good housing because they are poor. So poverty is to blame. They do not have enough funds for good sanitary measures, and they criticize the imperial government's health policy for not doing enough. So the Indians were actually opposing this. But there is another very interesting fact. If you look closely, in a nuanced manner, we see that there is another caste factor was getting involved in this, you know, because there are certain people who say that higher caste people, that the lower caste people, they are not very much, they do not maintain about hygiene and sanitation. They did not say it directly, but they said that the higher caste people, they are the cleanlier ones. Okay, so you see that the Bhadralok society, they are otherizing the non-Bhadralok, so-called non-Bhadralok section. So within the Indians also we see there is this kind of externalizing or otherizing one group of Indians based on their lower status in the society, lower caste status in the society. So this is a kind of, this is the social dimension, you can say. So on the one hand, from the imperial side, what we see is that healthcare facilities were not at all adequate to combat cholera or take measures against cholera for serving the common people. So the hardest hit remain the poor villages in this pandemic situation. And on the other hand, There was also certain talk of imposing pilgrim taxes, taxes on the pilgrims. No. But then the Bhadralok society also opposed. Because there were many landlords in these pilgrims and these religious fairs, you know, in many areas, religious fairs were actually profiting the local landlords also in certain manners. They're making income from this. So these people, the Jamindar class or the middle class Bengalis, they would oppose this pilgrim tax. They would also, but one thing they did very correctly, they said that during these pilgrimages, for example, there are many Indians who were going to Puri during Rath Yatra festival. And we see that through them, it was thought that cholera got disseminated. But this Bhadralok society, all the writers and the Bengali reformers, they said that there should be good sanitary arrangements in the religious festivals, in the fairs, in the pilgrim sites. For example, in Puri Rath Yatra festival, there should be good sanitary measures, provision of good sanitary measures. They criticized the imperial authority and the administration for not taking enough sanitary measures. And they were very true. These allegations were very true. Because what we see that the imperial government was criticizing a lot about Indians for their bad habits, but they were not taking actually any steps. They were taking certain steps, but those were not enough. And they would instead more and more blame the Indians. They would say that these pilgrim people, they do not care about obeying these sanitary measures. Bad kind of, very poor kind of sanitary measures, which actually were not effective to combat cholera. So the inadequate sanitary measures taken in pilgrimage sites and in religious fairs and festivals were actually to blame for outbreak of cholera in different pilgrim sites. And also, we see another anomaly, that is the imperial, one section of imperial administrators, they were advocating quarantine measures. Now, quarantine measures, as I said, were taken in the army barracks, full quarantine measures, only for the army people. And cholera was then combated. But for imposing quarantine on pilgrims who were coming back from their, coming back to home and everything, about that, the powerful voices like Cunningham and others, they said that no quarantine measures is needed. But there was another group like, I can mention D. Rinzi of Punjab Commissioner, Health Commissioner. He said yes, quarantine is needed. In Bengal also we see that certain officers, they said quarantine measure is needed. But the imperial government always vacillated. One reason was that they thought that to really intervene in these religious fairs and festivals might antagonize people. Their religious sentiments would hurt. So they were taking certain soft measures. Or the imperial government did not declare that they would take quarantine measures. They sometimes left it to the local government. But when and where these pilgrimage or fairs were being held, they passed on the responsibility to the local government. From the imperial government, there was no such declaration of any kind of strict measures, because they never really thought that cholera they thought that cholera was attacking the people, yes, but they were not very much bothered because their economic interest was not that hampered. The trade interest was not hampered. But they took severe measures during plague epidemic because their trade interest, trade with outside world was getting hampered. The export from India was dwindling because the other nations, they were imposing quarantine measures, maritime quarantine on Indians. I mean the British Indians. So imperial trade was getting hampered, but during cholera there was no such issue. So the imperial economic interest was not hampered. So there was no really very stringent measure taken. And also because a lot of finance would be involved. Not to do that, they did not take this cholera measure. So what happened to those who were suffering? As I said, there are certain hospitals, and in 1817, we see that there was this pauper hospital or native hospital. People were going there for cholera treatment. And later on, in 1835, there was Calcutta Medical College. In 1852, the first hospital was attached to the Calcutta Medical College. There, cholera patients were admitted. But how were they treated? There we see racism. In European world, there was very good facilities. But in Indian wards, there was no good facilities. There were less nurses. Sometimes there were not anyone to take care of the patients also. And Indians died in large numbers also in these hospitals. So was there any prophylactic available? Here we see that cholera pills were available. What were those cholera pills? The cholera pills was a kind of an empirical medicine. It was made of many local ingredients like camphor, like black pepper, and even opium. So cholera pills ingredients were these. And sometimes these cholera pills worked, sometimes they didn't work. On the other hand, we see that the hospitals which grew in the 19th century, they were very few in number, and they were mostly concentrated in urban areas and in Mufasal areas. No, not really much hospital in rural areas. There were dispensaries in rural areas, in semi-urban areas also. But the dispensaries also suffered from fund crisis because there were several classes of dispensaries. One class of dispensaries were actually run by the local people only, by the rich jamindars and all. There are another class of dispensary which are also run by subscription of local people, চাঁদা দিয়ে তারা চালাতেন এবং সেখানে সরকার সামান্য কিছু হেল্প করতেন. And there is another class of dispensary which are very few in number, which were run by the government. Now it was very minimum in number. Like out of 72 dispensaries in the 1870s and the 1880s, we see only 6 were run by the government. And there also, there was dearth of medicine and dearth of staff also. So this dispensary care was also very poor. The public healthcare system, as I was saying, did not cater to the need of the Indians, general people. So the rich Indians, the wealthy Indians, they would appoint physicians, the private practitioners. And there were many private practitioners like homeopath practitioners, Ayurvedic practitioners, or Kabiraj, তাদের আমরা বলি, হাকিম ছিলেন, এবং মহেন্দ্রলাল সরকারের মতন খুব জ্ঞানী গুণী চিকিৎসক ছিলেন। মহেন্দ্রলাল সরকার নিজের কথা উনি লিখেছেন, নিজের কিভাবে উনি ট্রিটমেন্ট করতেন সেসব লিখেছেন। এবং এইখানে আমরা দেখি যে হোমিওপ্যাথ, কবিরাজ এবং অ্যালোপ্যাথ চিকিৎসকরা তারা ওয়েলদি ইন্ডিয়ানদের তারা সার্ভ করতেন। তাদের নিজেদের মধ্যেও একটা রাইভালরি ছিল। কবিরাজরা বলতেন যে উই নো হাউ টু ট্রিট কলেরা পেশেন্টস। On the other hand, the homeopath also say that they don't know anything. We are the people to treat people, cure people of cholera. And there are, of course, allopath practitioners. And it is very interesting that the wealthy Indians who sometimes appoint all classes of practitioners, sometimes to show their status and sometimes to get best treatment possible. So this only happened among a very limited group of people. the majority of the poor slum dwellers or poor villages, they would be served by whom? They would be sometimes served by quacks. And interestingly, আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি রেকর্ডে যে সময়টা কলেরা রিচিং ইটস পিক, সেই সময় কোয়াকের নাম্বারও খুব বেড়ে যাচ্ছে, তাকে আমরা এখন বলি হাতুড়ে চিকিৎসা। So that became the fate of the general Indians during epidemic and during cholera pandemic situation. And there was widespread fear and everything, but the imperial government was facing a challenge, no doubt, because of this cholera pandemic, because of this outbreak of cholera in pilgrim areas. But they took only very piecemeal measures, minimal measures. They are minimalist, আমি যদি বলতে পারি, যে যতটুকু না করলেই নয়, ইম্পেরিয়াল হেলথ কেয়ার ফ্যাসিলিটিস ততটুকুই কলেরার সময় মানুষেরা পাচ্ছে, এবং কলেরা পিলস কখনো দেওয়া হচ্ছে, সেটা কখনো কাজ করেছে, কখনো কাজ করেনি। At the same time, this blaming of Indians went on, and finally I would like to end by saying that this cholera pandemic had a political, বলা যেতে পারে যে এর একটা পলিটিক্যাল দিকও ছিল। পলিটিক্যাল দিক কেন ছিল না, তখন বারবার এই যে ব্লেম করা হচ্ছে পিলগ্রিমদের, ভারতীয়দের, যে এরা আনহাইজেনিক, এরা স্যানিটেশনের কিছু বোঝে না, ওয়েস্টার্ন স্ট্যান্ডার্ডের ধারে কাছে এরা নয়, এর মধ্যে দিয়ে এরা একটা রাজনৈতিক উদ্দেশ্য সাধন করতে চেয়েছিল সাম্রাজ্যবাদীরা। এরা বারবার বলতে চাইছে কি, ইনডাইরেক্টলি ঘুরিয়ে ফিরিয়ে, যে এদের এখনো আমাদের কাছ থেকে অনেক কিছু শেখার আছে। So this was the ideology of the empire, serving the ideology of the empire, that even in case of diseases, these people are not competent to handle these diseases. So they need to learn from us, because we are culturally superior people. We know nowadays that the imperialism did not only mean an economic system, a system of economic exploitation. It also meant a kind of cultural hegemony, process of cultural hegemony. The সাংস্কৃতিক দিক থেকে ভারতীয় সভ্যতা অনেক পিছিয়ে রয়েছে, এবং সাংস্কৃতিক দিক থেকে পাশ্চাত্য সভ্যতা অনেক এগিয়ে রয়েছে, তাহলে আমরা এদেরকে অনেক কিছু শেখাবো। So it served the imperial ideology that they should remain under us for a long period of time, because they need to understand what Western system of sanitation is. They cannot take care of themselves. So it also had a political connotation. We have to situate that. Situate করার কথা হচ্ছিল যে entire political scenario এবং কালচারাল ডমিনেশনের সিনারিওটা, এটাও কিন্তু এই প্যান্ডেমিকের, কলেরা প্যান্ডেমিকের ইতিহাসের সঙ্গে জড়িয়ে ছিল, এবং সোশ্যাল টেনশন এগুলো তো ছিলই, যেগুলো হয়তো কোভিড-19 সঙ্গে অনেক ক্ষেত্রে আমরা মিল খুঁজে দেখতে পারি, রিজেম্বলেন্স আমরা দেখতে পারি। So thank all of you, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Everyone stay safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Actually, there is lots of questions for you, and the first question by Professor Sutapa Chaudhuri from our host college. She want to know whether there is a politics of gender in the previous pandemic, and some similar question Shivli Mukherjee asked, what happened to women? And other one is how gender history affected by this pandemic or epidemic. So I think these questions are almost similar. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much for asking this, because I have very intentionally left out gender, because it will become a huge thing to cover, you know. And for those who are interested, I will also give a webinar talk today at 6 p.m. by K.K. Das College, where I will talk about this gender dimension, you know, because we need another lecture to cover the gender dimension. এখন পলিটিক্স অফ জেন্ডার, হোয়াট হ্যাপেন টু উইমেন জেন্ডার, একটা খুব সংক্ষেপে যে একটা কথা বলবো সেটা হচ্ছে যে উইমেনদের অবস্থা খুবই সঙ্গীন ছিল। এখন হসপিটাল কেয়ারের কথা আমি যেটা বলেছিলাম, সেখানে মহিলারা খুব স্বল্প সংখ্যায় আসছেন, খুবই স্বল্প সংখ্যায় আসছেন। থ্রুআউট দ্য 19th সেঞ্চুরি আমরা যেটা দেখতে পাচ্ছি সেটা হচ্ছে যে মেয়েরা, বিশেষ করে ভদ্রলোক সমাজের মেয়েরা হাসপাতালে খুব একটা আসতেন না, তাদের হোম কেয়ারে তারা বেশি থাকতেন। এবং মেডিকেল কলেজে এমনিতেই ইম্পেরিয়াল গভর্নমেন্ট তো আলাদা করে মেয়েদের জন্য অনেকদিন পর্যন্তই কিছুই করেনি। ইনফ্যাক্ট থ্রু আউট এই ব্রিটিশ পিরিয়ড আমরা মানে সরকারি বিশেষ কোনো কার্যকলাপ দেখি না মেয়েদের স্বাস্থ্য রক্ষার ব্যাপারে। বেসরকারি দিক থেকে অনেক কিছু করা হয়েছে, যেমন মিশনারিরা এসেছেন, করেছেন কিছু কিছু, তারপরে কিছু কিছু ফান্ড তৈরি হয়েছে যেগুলো মেম সাহেবরা করেছেন, তারপরে ধীরে ধীরে মেয়েদের জন্য ডাক্তারি শিক্ষাটা চালু হলো, কিন্তু এই সবগুলোই খুব লিমিটেড ছিল, খুব লিমিটেড ছিল। কাজে বলা যেতে পারে যে পুরুষরা যতটুকু পারছিলেন তার অর্ধেকও মহিলারা সুবিধাগুলো অর্জন করতে পারেননি, এবং হোম রেমেডির উপরে মেয়েদের বেশি ভরসা করতে হতো। তার জন্য আমি শুধু করতে পারবো, যারা একটা মানে অত্যন্ত, এক কথা বলতে গেলে women suffered more than men obviously because they could not, খানিকটা সোশ্যাল স্টিগমা তো ছিল, সোশ্যাল কনজারভেটিজম ছিল যে মহিলারা, পর্দানুশীল মহিলারা বাইরে গিয়ে হাসপাতালে অন্যদের সঙ্গে থেকে তারা নিতে পারতেন না, আর গ্রামাঞ্চলে তো হাসপাতাল ছিলই না। So that is also, that was very, I would say that a very tragic situation for women. And in Spanish flu, for example, we see that women died in greater number than men in India. So obviously the healthcare was not reaching them. That was a very sad picture. And on the other hand, we see that from late 19th century, Dufferin hospitals were built up where women were getting some kind of attention. But mostly there was the kind of attention women were getting for reproductive health. Okay. Kintu epidemics er shomoy naturally women were getting less and less attention. সেটা নিশ্চিতভাবে বলা যেতে পারে। বাট মুশকিল হচ্ছে যে এটার ফ্যাক্টস অ্যান্ড ফিগার্স দিয়ে, আমাদের তো হিস্ট্রির যেটা কাজ, আমি যেগুলো historians craft is about trying to reconstruct the history from past records, right? So we can tell only what records tell us. So unfortunately, what we are not getting any figures which would give us a clear picture about how many women were getting treated during cholera pandemic situation in the hospitals. The hospitals records are not kept like that. But we can infer certain things, that of course women were in a very disadvantaged situation, and they obviously died in larger number, in greater number than men. There is no doubt in that. And politics of gender is a very huge issue. And it is really not possible. We have to really go for another webinar for that. The gender politics টা কিভাবে ছিল। সেখানে একটা ছোট জিনিস বলা যেতে পারে যে একটা সময় কিন্তু লেট 19th সেঞ্চুরিতে যে ইম্পেরিয়াল পলিটিক্স, তার একটা ফেমিনিন ফেস আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি যাকে বলা হয়। তখন ইম্পেরিয়ালিস্টরা বোঝানোর চেষ্টা করছে যে আমরা ভারতীয় মহিলাদের জন্য খুব কেয়ার করি, খুব ভাবি। We care about Indian women the way Indian men don't care about them. So that also became a part of imperial politics. This gender, bringing in gender dimension, that Indian male are incapable of taking care in the health front for the women. So the British ladies, they said that we'll take care of the health need of the Indian women. এবং সেটার বেনিফিটস অফকোর্স ইন্ডিয়ানরা পেয়েছিল, কিন্তু there was also racism involved. যেমন ইন্ডিয়ানরা যখন when they started, Indian women started getting medical education, they were not getting good posts. Although they were qualified enough, there was, because of racism, racial factor, the white female doctors would get better posts, even though they were less qualified than Indian women. And on the other hand, there was also social discrimination. So Indian women were suffering from double discrimination, the racist discrimination and social discrimination. So the women's condition were even worse.
Thank you so much, ma'am. There is another question from Dr. Kakuli Mukherjee. She asked whether imperial government took any measures to stop this when cholera broke out.
Measures to stop?
Yes, ma'am.
No, as I said, the cholera stop করার তো কিছু মানে আগে থেকে তো ওদের হাতে কোনো অস্ত্র ছিল না। আগে থেকে তো জানতে হবে যে কলেরাটাকে আমরা কি মেজার্স নিতে পারি। একটাই ছিল প্রিভেন্টিভ মেজার্স নেওয়া, যে গুড স্যানিটারি একটা পলিসি করা, স্যানিটারি পলিসি। দ্যাট ওয়াজ ল্যাকিং. That was I trying to make the whole point here, that they cared only about the army head. They did not care so much about village sanitation. Taking good sanitary measures, providing good drinking water, যেগুলো করার দরকার ছিল, preventive measures ওরা কিছু নেয়নি। কিন্তু when there was outbreak, there was severe outbreak, like একটা জায়গাতে যেমন 1897 যখন হরিদ্বারে যখন ফেয়ারের সময় যখন দেখা গেল, তখন তারা বন্ধ করে দিল ফেয়ারটাকে। So they took certain piecemeal measures only, not long-term good sanitary measures which would prevent cholera. That is why cholera kept coming back.
Ma'am, Kakuli Mukherjee, I asked a different question actually. Vidushi misunderstood. I asked a particular question, that whether they took any measure against open defecation system, because still we are fighting against that. Our government is taking several measures like Swachh Bharat Mission. So whether they took any initiative to stop this matter, open defecation system.
No, they did not take any as such measure, because as I said, where it was very much prevalent in those areas, it was left out to the municipalities, to the village administration, and to the in the city areas from 1870s, they left it to the municipal government. Okay. So the municipal governments, sometimes they did very piecemeal measures, not any law or anything. It was not that. Actually, what measures or what people's awareness that the nationalists were taking up, like Gandhi and others, they talked much about this thing. You know, the Indians, nationalist Indians, they are more interested to make people aware for that. There are plenty of writings about it, but not from the side of the imperial government. Thank you for asking that.
I can ask another question, Vidushi. Can I ask another question? Okay, ma'am. I also asked that I want to ask you that the way the Britishers, they identified us for this cholera epidemic, but what actually what I want to ask, whether we identified any enemy, like every pandemic people does, whether we identified any common foe for breaking out cholera.
Okay, that is also a very interesting question. Now, Indianদের বলা উচিত যে common foe, not that, but they refer to certain behaviors. Okay, a certain phenomenon like troop movements, like Mandela Sarkar and others would say, and others also, like the traders, these activities, not really people. They did not identify people as such, not in very clear terms, but activities of people like Portuguese traders, okay, like British soldiers, their movements, their activities, they definitely blamed that. Those people who got engaged in this, they blamed those kind of activities. The trading activities, troop movements on parts of the Europeans, they blamed that for dissemination of cholera. And that was partly, of course, true, because you know that it was carried from one place to another through human transmission. So it was very much there. I mean, at least in the early period when there was a large-scale outbreak of cholera within the army, that was definitely responsible. And the Indians were also critiquing the imperialists for not taking serious measures like sanitary measures. So their activities and inactivities, the Indians blend both this. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am. And another question from Tutul Dash asked whether wealthy Indians takes any welfare program during this pandemic or not.
Any health program?
By the wealthy Indians.
Wealthy Indians, yes.
Whether the wealthy Indians takes any welfare program during this pandemic.
Yes, to some extent in some regions, of course they did. I mean, any local powerful people, influential zamindars, they would try to help people, the cholera-stricken people. They would like to do that because, but they did not have large-scale means to cure these people once they get affected. Okay, they tried to do it very locally. Local initiatives were there. Very small scale local initiatives were there, but that could not really happen in a large scale. Only few local initiatives are taken, of course, by the wealthy zamindars. And writers, reformers, they were trying to make people aware of the danger of bad housing, etc.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Shoykot Sharkar have a question. It's in Bengali. He asked, 1852 সাল পর্যন্ত চলা কলেরা সব থেকে ভয়ঙ্কর ছিল। এই কলেরার যে ব্যাপ্তি তা আগের কলেরার ব্যাপ্তির থেকে অনেক বেশি। তাহলে কি এই কলেরার সাথে পূর্বেকার কলেরার বৈশিষ্ট্যের কোনো পার্থক্য ছিল?
আমি তো বেঙ্গলের উপরে স্ট্রেস দিয়ে করেছি, হ্যাঁ, কিন্তু আমি জানি না এটাই আগেকার এরকম কোনো রেকর্ড আমি পাইনি যে এটার সঙ্গে আগেকার কলেরা। ইউ মিন যে এপিডেমিওলজিক্যাল ফারাক না হোয়াট ফারাক? কোয়েশ্চেনটা কি? কারণ ওই সময় কলেরা গুলো ধরে তো অ্যানালাইজ করা সম্ভব ছিল না যে কি ধরনের কলেরা, এপিডেমিওলজিক্যালি তো বলা যাচ্ছে না।
জাস্ট মানে কম্পারিজন একটা জানতে চাইছেন যে কোনটা বেশি ভয়ঙ্কর ছিল।
না, উনি বলতে চাইছেন 1852 থেকে 60 মধ্যে যে হয়েছিল, একটা জিনিস সম্ভাবনা আমার মনে হয় যে ওই সময় 1857 আসছে, ওই সময় তো ট্রুপ মুভমেন্টস হয়েছে প্রচুর। 1857 গ্রেট রিবেলিয়ন, সেই সময় প্রচুর ট্রুপ মুভমেন্টস ইত্যাদি হয়েছে। ইট মাইট বি ডিসেমিনেশন মাইট বি রিলেটেড টু দ্যাট। দ্যাট ইজ ভেরি মাচ, দ্যাট ইজ ওয়ান প্লজিবল এক্সপ্লেনেশন যে ওই সময় ট্রুপ মুভমেন্ট। এবং আরেকটা জিনিস মনে রাখতে হবে নিঃসন্দেহে, সেটা হচ্ছে যে 1850 দুটো জিনিস আমি বলবো। একটা হচ্ছে যে 1852 পর থেকে কিন্তু কামিং অফ রেলওয়েজ, হ্যাঁ, রেলওয়েজ এবং রেলওয়েজ এর থ্রু দিয়ে, যদিও খুব কম তখন অব্দি রেলওয়েজটা শুরু হয়েছে, এবং কিন্তু একটা ভার্সন পাওয়া গেছে, যদিও সেটা খুব বেশি লোক বলেনি, কিন্তু ইম্পেরিয়াল অথরিটিদের মধ্যে একটা ভার্সন আছে যে রেলওয়ে লাইন যখন থেকে শুরু হচ্ছে তখন থেকে কলেরাটা একটু বেশি ছড়াচ্ছে। Before 1850 there was no railway, so 1852 পর থেকে কিছু রেলওয়ে রোড এক্সপ্যানশন এর কারণ একটা হতে পারে। সেকেন্ড আর একটা কারণ হতেই পারে যে 1857 ওই সময় ট্রুপ মুভমেন্ট to suppress this great rebellion. এই দুটো কারণ প্লজিবল এক্সপ্লেনেশন হতে পারে।
Well, thank you, ma'am. Rajesh Das asked, what was the initiative taken by the colonial government to the pregnant women during the epidemic or pandemic of cholera?
So this, you know,
actually,
you cannot really think in present terms and try to project those situations into 200 years back. You know, কারণ তখন মেয়েদের মানে প্রেগনেন্ট মেয়েরা বাড়িতেই থাকতো, সেখানে ইম্পিরিয়াল গভর্নমেন্ট খবরও পেত না যে কে বাড়িতে প্রেগনেন্ট হচ্ছে বা হচ্ছে না। সো এই ধরনের এখন যেরকম আমরা বলছি যে বারবার আমাদের টিভিতে আসছে যে প্রেগনেন্ট মহিলারা বেরোবেন না, বিশেষ করে তারা কোয়ারেন্টাইন পালন করুন, এটা তো তখন মানে কোনো ভাবার ইয়ে ছিল না, সম্ভব ছিল না, কারণ কিছুই নেয়নি আমি এক কথা বলবো আলাদা করে, কারণ তাহলে এত হাই ইনফ্যান্ট মর্টালিটি এবং মানে মেটার্নাল মর্টালিটি যেটা 19th সেঞ্চুরি শেষের দিক থেকে অ্যালার্মিংলি হাই ছিল, সেটা হতো না। You can infer from that figures. So there is so high rate of infant and maternal mortality, সেই সময় কিছু হতো না, হ্যাঁ, নিত না, এটাই বলা যেতে পারে। এবং উই আর অন শিওরার গ্রাউন্ডস যখন 1943-তে যখন ফ্যামিন হয়েছে বাংলাতে, ইনস্টেন্স দিচ্ছি, পরবর্তীকালে দেখা যাচ্ছে কিন্তু যে স্টিল বার্থের সংখ্যা প্রচন্ড বেড়ে যাচ্ছিল, তখন বিশাল বিশাল এপিডেমিক্স হয়েছিল। ডিউরিং 1942 there were cholera epidemic associated with famine of Bengal, Great Panchashar Manvantar, and there were large-scale epidemics of cholera, smallpox, and malaria. Tuberculosis was also there. And then there was a rise in the number of stillbirths. Samarthashan and others have shown that how from 1941 till 1950, there was lowering of birth rate. So from all this, we can really suggest that no special care was taken for impending the prenatal or postnatal care was not at all taken. Whatever was available, that was also, I mean, whatever could be available was not made available.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question from Rajesh Paul. He asked, we also know that some funds treatment is also here in colonial period, but some perspective women health is poor in this period. Can you agree? If agree, why?
Can you repeat it? Repeat the question.
Ma'am, I think meaning of the question is a bit hazy for me too. I am reading it out.
Yes.
We also know that some funds treatment is also here in colonial period, but some perspective women health is poor in this period. Can you agree? Why?
Women's health is of course, women's health was of course poor. কিন্তু এইটা এখন তো আমি আলোচনার এটা বাইরে ছিল, আমি সেই জন্য বললাম I would advise you to please attend another webinar where I will talk about specifically about women's health. এটা why এটা বলতে গেলে তো এখন সময় কুলোবে না,
অনেকটাই সময় লেগে যাবে। প্রশ্নের আমার মনে হলো মানেটাও একটুখানি আমার জন্য গোলমেলে মনে হলো। তো ম্যাম আর একটা দুটো কোয়েশ্চেন নিয়ে আমরা সেশনটা শেষ করব। মোহাম্মদ রিজওয়ান asked, was there any outbreak of cholera in England during 19th century? If yes, whom did they blame there?
হ্যাঁ, না, কলেরা আউটব্রেক ইংল্যান্ডে হতে থাকলো 1830, 31, 32 এরকম সময় শুরু হলো। তারপরে England, ultimately England was able to defeat cholera by 1860, 1870. Okay. Now India in general, England when it started, it disseminated through trade with Europe, with Germany and other parts of Europe. And they thought that this, of course, as I said, that this originated in India, and through trading activities with India, it came to Europe, and from Europe it got transmitted to England. So they thought about two things, that indirectly India is to blame, but directly traders who were in touch with India, European traders, they brought it to England. Okay, but later on England also, when there was this waterborne theory was in place, John Snow, he discovered it, that cholera germ was borne by water. Then England ultimately took good sanitary measures. Okay, because England and the trading lobby in England was opposed to maritime quarantine. England did not want to close trade with other European countries. So good sanitary measures, preventable sanitary measures were taken. So of course, England also thought that the place of origin was Indian, and then it brought to England through different kinds of traders.
Ma'am, to add with Mohammad Rizwan, also have another question. Was there any investigation or inquiry made over allegations on disseminating pandemics on certain people, religion, caste, or community?
কলেরা কমিশন হয়েছিল, সেই কলেরা কমিশনের মধ্যে দিয়ে চেষ্টা করা হয়েছিল. They wanted to understand, and more or less, as I said, there were both views were balanced, that Indian climate was a lot to blame, local conditions where cholera broke out. Those local conditions, local environmental conditions were to be blamed. And also people's insanitary habits are to be blamed. And also these pilgrims, they are a dangerous class. The pilgrims, and especially when they go to attend religious prayers, they do not obey good sanitary measures. So these pilgrims and their habits are also to be blamed. These were their conclusions reached by this Cholera Commission.
Well, thank you so much, ma'am, for your very informative lecture, and we're really blessed that we have got you for today's webinar. Thank you so much. Now I am opening this session to Department of Education, and I would like to call upon Professor Dr. Shomir Kumar Noshkor to conduct the seminar further. Shomir da, are you there?
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Absolutely. Please proceed. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. Thank you for hearing me. Everyone stay safe and healthy. Okay.
You too, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.